Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, I'm very excited because we are featuring one of our amazing students, Brendan, who's headed to Duke University. He's passionate about chemistry, biomedical engineering, plays varsity tennis, and somehow balanced it all with a summer internship and an intense college application process. So, Brendan, let's start with your passion for science. You've done impressive research in biomedical fields, which is pretty rare for a high schooler, but how did you first get interested in biology? I know a lot of students are still figuring out what excites them, so hearing your journey could really inspire them.
When I was thinking about potentially indicating what I wanted to study, I personally was hovering between like biology and chemistry or something in between. Both my parents are scientists, so I was like indirectly pushed in that direction. So I can't really necessarily say why at first I developed like interest in biology and chemistry. I think it is generally it's pretty interesting. And when I applied, I did decide to say I was going to major in chemistry, and I think I'm going to stick with that. And another smaller thing is that I recognized through my school at least that it's much more common to major in biology compared to chemistry. Not going too much into this, but in my school, my grade had like 200 kids. I was the only person who decided to major in chemistry. There must have been like 20 kids majoring in biology. So it's a big difference. But relating to research, I had it a little easier in that sense compared to a lot of people because, as I mentioned, my parents are both scientists. Fortunately, I was able to have connections through like my parents to get opportunities to intern or just be in a lab over the summer, which related to a lot of like chemistry and like biomedical engineering type of research that I was interested in learning more about. So I'm very fortunate to have that. I also think it was a very valuable experience. So having that environment really pushes you to think better. And I will note after I did that internship for maybe 8 weeks during the summer, I came back, I took classes, and the entire time I was taking those classes, I was just thinking, this is so easy compared to what I went over in that internship. So I think I learned like about working and organizing your time and just like trying really hard and like doing presentations and reading scientific literature, all these skills. And then of course, like interacting with all these people and like meetings and stuff like that. This was all very valuable to me. And I think definitely on paper, my most valuable activity was my research internship that I did this summer.
I think that's so great that you were able to tap into your parents' network for research opportunities. Having that support can really open doors. Did you put much thought into the kind of research you wanted to do ahead of time? Were you intentional about finding projects that matched your interests, or was it more of a jump into whatever opportunity that came your way kind of approach?
I think it was more in the direction of the second thing you mentioned because I did develop like an interest in chemistry and biology, but only taking classes in high school. I know a lot of kids do like a lot of stuff outside of school relating to biology, chemistry, whether that's like competitions or like these different extracurricular activities. I didn't really do too much of those. So I didn't really develop enough of an interest, or I didn't have as much of a developed interest in like chemistry so that I could really decide on what research I was super interested in. So I had this opportunity and I decided to go there, and it happened to work out that a lot of it was very interesting to me and a lot of it happened to be what aligned with my interests.
So, speaking of which, can you tell me more about your research experience during your summer internship? What kind of project were you working on, and what specific area did you focus on?
So the research lab had a lot to do with chemistry and biomedical engineering. I participated or did some work in a research project involving creating a drug-free nasal fluid to serve as a barrier against pollen allergens. And I did a lot of work with testing the development of allergic rhinitis in mice by exposing them to pollen or just putting the gel into their nostrils and then dropping the pollen into their noses to examine how their symptoms indicated development of allergic rhinitis. And then from that development of allergic rhinitis in different mice to determine the efficacy of this nasal formula. So that's mainly what I did. In addition to doing that main project, which was largely biology related, I was a little more interested in chemistry maybe than biology. So then I was able to do a little bit of like basic lab work that had more to do with like those interests as well.
Now, besides all of your science work, I know you're also a pretty serious tennis player. How did you get into tennis, and how much time did you usually devote to tennis each week? A lot of our students actually wonder how to balance sports with school and other commitments outside. So, hearing your experience can really give them some great insight.
So I played on my high school team for 4 years on the varsity team, and then I was captain for the last 2 years. I did a lot of like private or like a lot of programs to like train for tennis separate from like school in the first 2 years of high school. And then before that, I played a lot of tournaments or some tournaments. Last 3 years of high school, I was a camp counselor at a summer camp at the same sports club that I played tennis in. So that is pretty much the extent of my time playing tennis. And then relating to the time like in high school doing it, I know from all my friends that sports obviously it takes up a huge amount of time, like really like a lot. Like you feel like you don't have time to do like academics. I could tell because not from my own experience necessarily, because I think our tennis team, you still have to practice every day after school, but it's a significantly larger time commitment. I could see that it does take a lot of time. But for me specifically, I think it didn't cause too much of an impact because maybe it was like a couple hours each school day, but apart from that, it wasn't so bad.
And this brings me to something I noticed in your profile that I really liked. You volunteered at Stray Pets in Need, the animal shelter, and also did some pet sitting for neighbors, right? Tell us more about how you got involved in that and how long you've been doing that for.
I started volunteering at an animal shelter when I started high school. I didn't devote like a massive amount of time to that. It was more I go to the shelter every few weeks and I just do a little like cleaning or a little like socializing or that kind of thing. And then also I started doing a little bit of like fundraising type of thing, which I
Mm.
wrote about in my essays and stuff. It was a way for me to relax and find some sort of like different kinds of fulfillment. For instance, what I wrote my college essay about was something along the lines of how there's a lot of different animals at the shelter. And as I mentioned, I had like an introverted personality, but I think from recognizing that like cats of all animals compared to other animals, they're like more shy and stuff like that. In the beginning, that just helped me interact with them more because I know they're not like jumping all over me, but they're still like affectionate in a different kind of way. Cats with different personalities helped me recognize that there's value in different types of people and their personalities in the sense that the way people do things and the way people think about things, that you can be more thoughtful and more like intuitive and like quieter in the sense you don't have to have such like a flamboyant personality all the time. And I think I really tried to emphasize that when I was applying to colleges, that like from what I learned at the animal shelter, also that what I learned is that I don't have to be somebody who's going out and doing all these outgoing things that I don't necessarily feel comfortable doing. And obviously it's important to get out of your comfort zone, but at the same time, who I am is just somebody who's like more thoughtful and more reserved most of the time. And I think interacting with the cats at the shelter helped me recognize that's not something that I should be like necessarily trying to push out of myself.
I love that your story shows how something you were just doing on the side ended up being really deeply meaningful, not just to you, but to also your college applications and your essays. So let's shift gears just a little bit. Can you tell us what it was like working with your InGenius counselors? How did that process go for you?
I started working with InGenius the summer
Mhm.
last year. So basically, most of the summer leading up to my senior year, I wasn't able to consult them about like forming my application profile like in junior year or like picking certain activities to do. So it was really by the time I started working with them, it was like basically everything is set for the first 3 years. So just like they help me with what I have. And I think that it is helpful for people to have early guidance in terms of the earlier years of high school. With what I had, they helped me a lot in terms of forming the application profile and stuff. So I think I had a ton of questions each time, but I could meet with my counselor every week and then just ask all those questions. And then in between the week, if I like didn't want to wait to meet the next time, I could just email them and then they would be pretty responsive about that. Also, the fact that they had like a graduate coach along with the former admissions officer, I got a lot of communication over the summer when I was doing a lot of essay writing and a lot of the bulk of the work for filling applications for sure.
I'm so happy that the process went smoothly and that your Ingenious counselors really kept you involved every step of the way. I think that really makes a difference and it helped you get into Duke. How amazing. Congratulations. Now that you're headed there, and if I'm not mistaken, you applied early, right? What are you most excited about?
I visited in my junior year and then I visited for an admitted students thing after I got it in the spring. I'm very excited because obviously it's my top choices, but the one I was most enthusiastic about, I think the people there are very outgoing. I went there and I felt like everyone is so cool. I'm the least cool person there in a way that made me a little anxious in a sense, because before that I was thinking I'm going here like for college, like for academics. That's the main reason I chose it for academics. And then of course that like other aspects besides academics helps distinguish it from like other like top tier universities. But mainly it was academics. And then I went there and then I realized, oh, everyone is so social and I don't know if I'll have time to study it, get as much done academically as I want to, do all these like academic related activities while still spending so much time with all these people who seem so cool and they're all really smart. And I've talked to a lot of students at Duke and they all seem very high achieving. So I'm excited to be around a very large group of people who are all pushing themselves very hard. I think it will definitely help me improve as a person by being around such an ambitious environment.
We're all excited to see what's next for you at Duke, and we hope you'll keep in touch so you can come back and tell us all about it. So, to all of you listening, don't forget our free monthly webinars cover everything college admissions from essays to applications and beyond. They're packed with insider tips to help you feel confident and ready for your college application journey. Make sure to follow us on all our socials, especially right here on the podcast, so you never miss a new episode. All the links are waiting for you down in the description box below. If you have any questions, feedback, or ideas on future episodes, please reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you and make sure that I'm giving you what you need. Thanks again for listening, everyone, and I'll see you in the next one.